everyone. Welcome out here to this beautiful Wednesday morning. We're going to be talking about a very special topic in my mind. It's one that the industry is probably one of the top needs out there. And if you don't know, either Bill or myself, if you don't know Bill, there's an issue. So Bill Good has been in the industry and has been an icon and a mentor and a guide in this industry for decades, helping advisors grow significantly and educating and a leader in even predicting the future of this industry. So Bill, thank you for joining us this morning.
I'm just delighted to be here, Matt.
Awesome. So I've been in the industry for about 22 years. I got my start with Bill Good, but I also worked in the industry as an office manager, advisor for about 14 years. So I think between the two of us, we have plenty of knowledge and experience to help you with this topic of building the billion-dollar team. Now, before we get started, just a couple of quick things that we need to make sure everybody understands. Number one, webinars are only as good as you help us make them. So if you have questions, if you have scenarios you would like us to run through, if you have a situation with an existing team member you'd like to ask us about, please feel free to do so. At the bottom of the screen, you'll see an option for the Q&A or the chat. Please use those to ask the questions. We'll either address them in the main body of our presentation, or we'll pull out at the appropriate time and we'll make sure you get all of your questions answered. But please do use those opportunities. You've got great access to Bill Good here. We'll be able to answer all of your questions. That said, now for those of us that are joining us who are not already a client and working with us, or even those that are working with us, as a reminder, a little bit about what we do here at Bill Good Marketing. Well, before we get there, we have a goodie bag. You have to stay to the very end. Today's goodie bag actually is the document Surefire Team Development. This is something that Bill, you and I have been in development of this for a year. Yeah, this has been a long time coming. Bill wrote the document Surefire Team Development years ago. He and I have spent a year working, researching, and developing to put together an updated version of that document for you. It goes through everything that we're going to talk about today, but in a lot more detail. So you'll want to stay to the very end and answer a few brief questions. So wait for the link at the end of this presentation, and then you'll be able to download your version of Surefire Team Development. So again, a little bit about Bill Good Marketing. So we've been in the business and helping advisors double their production and work half as much for decades. It's one of the things that other coaches can't say. The way we go about this is also a little different than most. We do it very similar to how you would work with a client, or we would expect you to work with a client. And that is, we get to know you, exactly what it is you're trying to accomplish. What are your goals? And often, I don't know how many times you've heard this, Bill, but the whole double your production, work half as much. How often do you hear the answer of both?
Frequently, they want both. And I always tell them it's double your business or work half as much.
Yeah.
We never promised but some people went and did it anyway.
They do it anyway. And we've got the best practices that'll get you there. In fact, Bill Good has developed the 118 best practices in this industry. Now, just a brief note on a best practice. We only call it a best practice if no matter who applies it, no matter what market they're in or what objective they're trying to do, it works for them. So these 118 best practices get you from where you are now to where you want to be in the most efficient way possible. And that's what we help with by developing a plan for where you're at to get you to there. So if you are struggling with any of the things we talk about today, or if you're just struggling and find yourself on a plateau, please reach out. We'd be happy to develop that plan for you, a growth strategy that'll help you get to where you want to go. Now, all that being said, let's get into our topic today because we've got a lot to discuss, a lot to cover in just an hour. So just a brief description of what we're going to talk about today. We're going to talk about the main problem that we have in this industry and you as an advisor, the problem you're facing. And then we're going to talk a little bit about what is a team and what it's looked like in the past, what it currently looks like, and what we think it'll look like in the future. We're going to talk about why you should hire, and a little bit in there, we're going to talk about when you should hire, when you know. We're going to talk about who you should hire, and then finally, we'll talk about the process of hiring. Okay, so that being said, I'm going to drop out the slides so you can actually see us talking to each other rather than just a whole bunch of slides up on the screen. So Bill, In this industry, there is a massive problem, and it's something that none of us ever can get around. And why don't you describe that problem, how you discovered it for advisors, and then a little bit of the what it means.
All right. The problem is 4 letters, the word time. And this goes way back to the beginning of Bill Good Marketing. And I did a time study in a Payne Weber office in, I don't know, 1985 or 6. This is about the time of Noah's flood. And I discovered a magic number. And the magic number, when I ran all my numbers, was the average of, I think it was 11 or 13 people participating in my study. But when I totaled everything up, they were worth an average of $960 an hour. Now, no one could remember $960 an hour, so I rounded it up to $1,000 an hour. And when I discovered that number, I was so shocked that financial advisors, then called brokers or account executives, could be worth that much money. And I reran the study. And within 10 or 15%, I came out with the same amount. And when I had that number, then the direction I needed to go was clear. I needed to figure out a way to help people get more time, more of those $1,000 hours. And that led to the concept of the team development. I actually convinced the branch manager at Payne Weber to let me hire a sales assistant. That's what they were then called. And that was the primary caregiver, because I figured if we know what the sales assistant is supposed to do, then we can use that to leverage the amount of time the advisor is spending. And that study failed for months. And I thought, there's something wrong. And I finally had this epiphany moment. I was driving around in downtown Salt Lake or something when the clouds opened up, the birds sang, the sun shone, the fog lifted. And I realized that that one person can't do it all, because my so-called sales assistant was trying to do both customer service and what we would later call sales support. I was trying to get her to set appointments, call clients, set appointments, set up seminars, and no matter what I did, service trumped sales, and it disabled what I was trying to do. So it was the epiphany moment that we needed 2 people. Well, hey, by the time you get what I later called a service assistant, a sales assistant, and an advisor, that's a team. And the purpose of the team is to buy more $1,000 hours.
100%. And I think that, so one of the things that we've done since I've been back and we've been working together is we documented 162 job responsibilities in the office. So to your point, no single advisor
Right.
or single associate are going to be able to get all of that done to a high level on their own. We need a team. And I think that really comes down to our next topic. So we know the problem. So we know a team is going to solve it, but one of the things that you've defined and have been great at doing is defining things for all of us. And there's all kinds of definitions of a team out there, but I think yours is the best. And let's go ahead and take a look at that. What is a team, Bill?
All right. I have defined a team as 3 or more people. It's not 2. It's not an advisor and 1 assistant. That's not a team. A team is 3 or more people united by a common purpose, each with defined roles. That's key. And sharing a common knowledge base. Now, what's that common knowledge base? Well, part of the common knowledge base is the rules and regulations under which the industry operates. It's the requirements of your firm, and it's your local policies. It's how you have set out to run your business. And people have to be on the same page. And what gets them on the same page is the common knowledge base. That gives you a team.
Yeah. And I think the key to this here is that no part of this definition can be removed and
Right.
you still have a team. that you can't have a group of people in the office that are supposedly called a team. And I know you've seen lots of these where advisors partner up and call themselves a team.
They're not.
But
No,
no.
that definition of a team is a bunch of people in more or less in the same area doing stuff.
Which doesn't work.
Right.
You don't end up in the same destination, and that's the key point here. So I think the key here is let's talk about the team and its development over time, because obviously you started off with that sales associate, understood that they needed to do service. Let's talk about how the team has progressed from there. So in taking a look at the original team was the $1 million team, right? And you needed a certain setup in order to get to there. But now that with inflation and in the economies of scale and all the other stuff that's gone on in technology, it's now a $2.5 million team. But what does that team look like?
Well, what the team looks like is in the middle of it, you've got your sales and advising group, and these are the financial advisors. And their purpose is make investment recommendations to interested qualified clients and prospects, and do all the necessary planning to accomplish the above. If the advisors are doing other stuff, they are then doing other roles. So we have a service team. And years ago, I named that service assistant. At the time, the industry was calling everybody a sales assistant. And I tallied up one time, I wrote 11 articles in the 1990s arguing that the company should change the name of their primary caregiver to service assistant, service associate, service manager. You need the word service in the team so people know who to call for service. Otherwise, if they don't know, they'll call you the advisor. So your service assistant or service associate handles all, the key word is all, service related problems. All right. And the service associate protects the advisor's time and acts as office manager. So right there, the advisor has bought at least 4 hours of time. And these are now not $1,000 hours. They're more like $1,500 hours. And there's no way the ROI of team development isn't the best investment you will ever make. Now, advisors spend or want to spend a lot of time developing new business. Well, that comes with the outreach team. And we have two key players in that team. You will likely start with one. You have a relationship manager and a business development manager. The relationship manager handles all of your relationships that can produce new clients. That means they manage the relationship with your clients, with client referrals, with client introductions, with your strategic partners. All right. Those are some of the relationship marketing channels, if you will. Now, your business development manager is reaching out beyond your sphere of influence. These may involve doing seminars. It may be doing cold calling. And right now we're working on a fabulous plan, which we're just going to, for right now, the term is precision marketing. And that should not be the same person who is your relationship manager, especially if you have arrived at a point you have several hundred clients and 50 or 60 or $100 million or more. So the purpose of the outreach team, ensure the advisor always has plenty of interested qualified people to talk to and see. Now, within the outreach team, we have another player, which we have named the CRM operation specialist. Sadly, most people sort of designate this to other team members, but there's a lot of things that are not getting done with your CRM. It takes at least 20 hours a week to maintain a decent CRM. So the purpose of that position, meticulously follow the computer operations daily task checklist. That's the team that will get you to $2.5 million.
Yeah. And I think that, this is the team today. And I would say that probably one of the bigger mistakes that I see advisors make is they hire out of order, right? They look to that business development, like you said, Bill, and they hire that person first. And meanwhile, they're stuck in service. or they go out there and they have a service associate and they ask that service associate to be multiple positions. And we'll talk
Right.
about some of the laws of that and why that never works in a bit. But I think the key here is to understand that this is the team. Like, this is what's going to get you to that $2.5 million. Now, let's talk about the future, right? So if we're at 2.5 million, or they're close to thereabouts, let's talk about what that next level looks like.
Oh, this is the $1 billion team. And this is not theory. We've done this. We have taken multiple teams from actually starting off in the low 100,000s range to more than $1 billion. I got off the phone today with a $2 billion client, and he's been with us since the 90s. All right. Now, so what does his team look like? Well, the key thing here is to understand that the chart we just showed you is scalable. So you have an advising team, an outreach team, and a service team. There are just more people involved. So in your service team, you could have an administrative function and a relationship function. In your outreach team, you've got lead generation and lead development. And for each of these, we have full-blown job descriptions. We have information on how to hire them, what to pay them, how to keep them interested and motivated, how to have them keep working for you and not going somewhere else. But this team here, this is $1 billion that you're looking at.
Definitely. And I'm going to leave this up for just a minute and then I'll take it down. Again, you'll want to stay to the end and get that a hold of that white paper. So stay to the very end of this, answer the few questions, and you'll be able to download the Surefire Team Development document that goes through a lot of this. And
it's got pictures of these in there, right?
Well, you'll be able to get access to them, and some it has the picture of the $2.5 million team in it. So yeah, this is definitely something you want. So
Okay.
but the key here is that what I want to talk about briefly is the fact that everybody knows you need a team, and I would imagine everybody on this call today has hired somebody or has hired multiple somebodies, and has experienced some of the problems that come with that. And then they start turning to other potential solutions, right? We're always looking for the easier out, right? So I want to talk about one of those solutions that people look at, because I think this is one of those areas that, where you and I talked, Bill, and are looking to the future of what teams are going to look like. And this is going to be a part of it. And that's that virtual assistant. Let's talk briefly about that. Well, what is the virtual assistant? How does that work? And how does it not work?
Well, a virtual assistant is someone not in your office who is preferably trained in the administrative affairs of your firm. And they can take some of the work. For some people, you start with a virtual assistant. You're a solo operator, maybe you've gotten up to 200,000, 250 or something, which is about as far as you can go without help. You want to get some help. Where do you start? Well, let's take some of the paperwork off your plate. So Matt, go through some of the sequence of what things to take off first.
Yeah, and this is something that is outlined again in that document that you and I went over. So the key is, very first off, is start with the simple stuff, right? The easy documents. And I know that's kind of counterintuitive because some people want to go for the documents that are difficult. So I'm talking about, ACH forms, maybe an LOA, maybe a new account paperwork. These are forms that take time, but they're not typically overly complex. Maybe they're lengthy, but they're not too complex. And it's something that I can train a new person to do, especially if they're familiar with paperwork processing, how to process those different forms. And then as they get the key to that is, number one, we'll start off with training them how to do it, and they'll watch us fill it out. Then we have them fill it out with us watching. And then we have them filling it out with us double checking. And then once there's zero errors, they take over those forms and they move forward with that. And then as we are demonstrating that we can handle those more simple forms, then we move up to the more complex things like insurance policy processing, things like annuities and stuff like that, so that we know that they can handle the little stuff before they get to the big ones, where there's those little check boxes hidden somewhere that change the entire makeup of the account if it's not checked. So we want to make sure that they can handle those things first. So there is a process of that. And the cool thing about the virtual associate from your back office, if your broker dealer provides one or offers one, is they're typically familiar with the paperwork and they can handle that stuff for you. And in my experience, paperwork is one of the more time consuming things next to incoming phone calls. So that's where I see the virtual assistant working. Let's talk about the virtual assistant not working. And now there are exceptions to this, but as I mentioned at the beginning, we at Bill Good Marketing operate in best practices. I'm not going to give you the solution that works for a few. I'm going to give you the solution that pretty much works everywhere. So there are a few that I've talked to that have business development officers that are virtual. I have talked to a few that have service managers who are virtual, but most of the time that doesn't work. And the reason being is, Bill, you taught a long time ago the best way to bring up a business development officer. And what is that way? How do we get somebody from being brand new to the industry to being able to, manage and run a lead development pipeline?
Well, the first thing they have to do is know how to pick up the phone and call somebody. And we may start them out with introducing them to your clients. We have letters to do this. And we send that letter out, and your business development manager calls your clients and talks to them, asks them a few questions, make sure they know who he or she is, and develop a name and identity. The letter and the phone call really create the advisor's blessing. That new lead, or the new business development manager is blessed, and people know this is somebody in this practice, not somebody who's calling that I shouldn't talk to.
Yeah.
So just like with the virtual assistant, when we start them simply, we want to start the business development officer simply.
Yeah. And it's best for them to be listening to the advisor make those phone calls, to be in the office with them, to
Right.
hear it,
Yeah,
sitting with
that's
them.
key, is that at some part of the day for a new business development officer should be spent in the advisor's office. If you can run a phone line in there so the advisor can listen to the new business development person and can make corrections, that is the best. That is the best training that you can give a new development officer, is to be coached by a senior advisor who cares about them.
Definitely. So again, there are places where the virtual assistant will work. There are places where, yeah, sure, we could, roll the dice and it could work, and it has for some, but it's not an area where I see it working in every situation. So it's not the recommended option. So that being said, that's kind of the future of teams, and we get into this discussion. I talk to a lot of different advisors across the country about the future of the industry, and there's this, they're using Chat GBT for investment advice and all these other things to help put together the ideal portfolios, and it scares some advisors, but those are the advisors that had set up the right team, a team of specialists like that $1 billion team that we showed. They're not as worried, right? Because their business is not about choosing an asset allocation portfolio for low end clients. Their business is about helping high net worth families and ultra high net worth families manage their overall financial portfolio. And a team allows you to do that efficiently and effectively for your clients. So that's the direction I see it going. Or you can go the other route, which is you answer the phones, you're in the office from 9 to 5, you wear the company name tag, and that's it. And you get your small little percentage, and you can make a good 6-figure living from that. But if you want the 7 figures or higher, you've got to build the right team to do that.
Right.
And that's kind of the way I see the future going. I don't know if you have any thoughts on that, Bill.
No, that you said it all there.
Perfect. So let's talk about some of the other big problems that people have had in hiring. Because again, those on the call and listening may be saying, yeah, again, Matt and Bill, that's great to know that what the team looks like, but I've tried hiring people all the time. One of the big mistakes that I see that we'll talk about, and if you have any questions or scenarios you want to pose, please drop those into the chat or the Q&A section so that we can get those answered for you. But one of the big problems is people don't hire at the right time. right? So how do we tell, Bill, if we're operating a business, how do we tell that, okay, yeah, I need to bring somebody in? What's the key indicator?
Well, one thing is the advisor is being forced over into doing other people's jobs.
Yeah.
And number two is your service assistant can't get everything done in a timely fashion.
Yeah.
And those would be the two indicators. It's time.
Yeah.
Optimally, however, you want to hire for the next level of income to produce. So if you're, let's say, at $1 million and you want to go to $1.5 million, you have to figure out what the staffing component will be at that next level and hire it at this level.
Yeah. And I think that's that being the ideal, right? And the way to get there, if you're at a stage now where you're saying, okay, well, that's great, but how do I know it's time to hire before it's time to hire? The key is, and Bill and I've gone over this, there are a number of job descriptions, and there are a number of key performance indicators or KPIs for each of those jobs. So in other words, key tallies to show us that that job is being completed. Because what we have to know is that the existing job is being done as efficiently as possible. And if it's being done as efficiently as possible, KPIs are being hit regularly, we're checking those boxes, and we're either hitting a plateau or getting ready to hit a plateau, something along those lines, that's when it's time to hire. Because we know the jobs are being done, and they're being done as they should be done. And now we need to, in order to get more work done, back to that main problem of time, we have to add somebody else to the office to get that time. So that's number one. Number two, in order to make sure we have those efficiencies, again, we have to have clear job descriptions. And then you have to, and we'll talk about this in maybe on a future broadcast about management processes, but you need to be having a quarterly or at least every 6-month review with your team members to discuss, how are they doing? Are they completing all the jobs? Are they feeling overwhelmed and stressed? Do they have the proper resources to get everything done? The other thing that I would also suggest is that each member of your team should conduct a time study at least once every 6 months, where you go in and you log your time and where it's being spent in probably 15-minute intervals. I'm not saying you go out there and say, okay, yes, I went to the bathroom from 10 to 10:02. Now, if you're like one of the advisors I used to work with and you're in the bathroom from 10 until 11, yeah, you need to write that down, right? But if you're going to be otherwise, just put everything that you do throughout the day, and you'll see, like when you go back and you review your week, you'll see, oh yeah, I talked to the Jones on Monday at 10, and then again at 2, and then again at 3, and then again at 4, and then I talked to the service assistant at 5 about him. And you think, okay, well, how could we have done that more efficiently? And that's where you can start seeing, okay, are we operating at peak efficiency? And if we are, and we're still not handling everything, then yeah, we've got to bring somebody in to help. Now, we've had a couple of quick questions in the chat now. For the client relations person, I found someone outside of the industry that works in luxury retail, and it seems they have the qualities to be good at the job, but they are transitioning to this industry. Any suggestions for how to help with this transition? And is it worth it to hire someone who's transitioning from a different industry? What would you say to that?
Let me answer that, because I'm working with 2 teams right now who hired from out of the industry, and both of them are having outstanding success. And the most important thing that you can do is to make certain that the people that you hire from out of the industry understand the language of the industry. If you're using a bunch of jargon and terms they have no idea of, that'd be like me going to work in a French restaurant and they're calling out all these words. I don't know what pain means. Well, it happens to mean bread, but that'd be the limit of my knowledge of French cooking. So I send people to this website, Investopedia, which I think has the best glossary of financial terms. And part of bringing someone new on is to make certain that they understand the words you use and that are used commonly in the industry. And that's not probably more than 50 words that they really need to know, but they really need to know those. And again, with your relationship manager, it's so important to have them call existing clients and introduce themselves, followed by a letter from you. That's the blessing. In our newsletter this week, one that just came out, we have a picture of this team at a company called Peters Financial, and they did an absolutely fabulous shredding event. Well, it wasn't just a shredding event; it became a Cinco de Mayo event. They hired the best Mexican restaurant in town. They had 110 or 120 people, and the marketing director on that team was from out of the industry. So does it work? You bet.
Yeah. Oh, 100%. And I've seen it work so many different times, but I want to re-stress what Bill said about understanding the terms, because I've talked to teams that feel like, oh, my relationship manager doesn't get into the investing side, so they don't need to understand.
Wrong answer.
They have to know, right? And I work with an advisor right now who's extremely successful, doing a fantastic job, and he's learned that lesson, and now he's going back with each of his team members, and once a week he has a class, and he sits down with his team and he goes over different concepts and ideas so that they understand the terms he's using, and then in turn that the clients are using, so that they're all speaking the same language. And that is so important. And I'll just put another resource out there. Morningstar Classroom is another great one that has videos that go through the very, very basics of investing. That's another option out there for some glossary terms aside from Investopedia. The other question that's come in is, are KPIs for each position provided by BGM, and are they available to utilize? Yes. So we have the basic core position KPIs. They are in the document library. So please jump in there and search KPI. They'll come right up, or you can even, since they're in order of uploading, just scroll down a little bit and you'll see the KPIs for the various positions, like, business development officer, relationship manager, service associate, and so on. Now, these are our ideas. I highly recommend when you download them, they come in Word so that you can edit them, because your job positions, based upon the job descriptions you've written for your jobs in your office, might vary slightly, and then we'll need different KPIs. So do verify those, but yes, they are available and they're in the document library. All right, so let's talk through, again, we've talked a little bit about why we should hire, right? We look at efficiencies first, and then we go for hiring, right? Let's talk about then each of these positions, and I want to talk about them. And there's a question that came in that actually is right along these lines, which is fantastic. I want to talk about what it means. Well, let's first go through the laws, right? Because there are laws to team building. You can't just go out there and hire willy-nilly, or worse, build that dog, cat, bird that you're famous for talking about, Bill. So let's talk about the laws of team building. Why don't you came up with these, so why don't you go through them for us?
All right. When sales advice, that's you, the advisor, and service support are performed by the same person, okay, selling time will be squeezed nearly to the vanishing point, and the dreaded plateau will set in. All right. That's not an opinion. That's a fact. It's a law.
100% of the time. Yep.
When service and computer operations are performed by the same person, computer operations will degrade to the point it mostly consists of calendar functions. Okay.
I want to make a point on that, actually, Bill, because you've mentioned this a couple of times, and it's something that, again, I think that you've been famous for pushing in this industry, because I think notoriously this industry is poor at keeping clean and pure data. Can you briefly touch on the importance of having clean data, what that means to the bottom line?
All right. We're talking stuff that is at the very bottom of the CRM build, if you will. It's called data. And let's just take simple examples. You've got Robert Jones and Robert's wife, Elizabeth Smith. How do you address them? Is it Bob? Is it Robert and Elizabeth? Is it Bob and Liz? Is it Dr. So-and-so and Professor so-and-so? And there are correct answers for those, and those answers matter. All right. If you don't address people the way they want to be addressed, you lose points every time they see an email from you or any other correspondence. So our focus in the data is to get it right and then have systems in place to ensure it stays right. So in some of our computer operations checklists, there are a list of tasks to perform once a quarter. And we want to root out error frequently rather than wait until you have to do the whole cleanup again. And the part of the problem is the advisor thinks, well, we don't spend a lot of time doing CRM stuff. The problem is there are tasks that should be done that you're not getting done. And we totally believe you need a person whose primary responsibility is to maintain the accuracy of your data.
Yeah.
So there you have it.
Because bad data, like Bill said, will cause you problems. Good data will allow you to grow your business.
Right.
I mean, having the proper information where it's truly data mined, and our GSS team here will do that for you if you're using G5, but they'll data mine for you. And data mining can have such a huge impact on your business, and in particular, the bottom line. So I can't stress enough the importance of not having service just handle computer operations too. You've made a dog cat, and those tend to chase each other around and cause problems. So
right.
Let's talk about the final rule here.
All right. When the financial advisor does all or most of the above, you have a mess. I don't think anything else needs to be said about that, because
100%.
Those of you who are doing it all know that you have a mess, and you stay awake at night when you remember that your good client had a $400,000 CD come due last week, and you jotted it down on a sticky note.
Yeah, exactly. And I've been to offices where that's happened, and that it doesn't go well. So let's talk about each of these positions, because by now I think those of you listening have decided, okay, yeah, maybe I need to hire, or hey, I have hired some people, but I'm not sure if it's the ideal person for that role, as evidenced by some of the questions we've already had. So let's talk about each of these positions, and we'll start, I think, with the service associate. What makes an ideal service associate, Bill?
Someone who has a pleasant, warm personality, someone who is meticulous in their attention to detail, someone who can follow up, and someone who really cares about the clients. We're talking a combination of smarts and certain characteristics and personality. Mm-hmm. I one time counseled a client of mine to fire his service manager. She was technically competent, but she was so sour, nobody wanted to talk to her.
Yeah, I've done the same. I had a team that went out there, and I met with them, and I met with each team member, as I do every time I do a consult with the team, to go through each job and each person, met with everybody, and then came back to the advisor and said, okay, well, you have a problem. Number one, way too many of your team members want to be an advisor, and they're in service roles. And then your primary service person, yeah, they're capable of getting the jobs done, but nobody on the team wants to talk to them, and she doesn't even want to be here. So yeah, there's a problem, right?
Right.
So your service associate has to be detail oriented. I think they have to have a high sense of responsibility, right? They finish these tasks. It's one of their big chief traits that allows them to be phenomenal at their jobs. But it's also one of those that has them struggle with time management, because immediately whatever comes at them is the most important thing, and they have to focus on it. So it is a two-edged sword, but it is one of the traits that they must have. Now, let's talk about the relationship manager next, because the question we have is, it seems like the service associate and the relationship manager are the same. Where do we draw the line between the two?
All right. Well, one place to draw the line is the word persuasion. The service assistant, personality-wise, generally does not want to be in sales. A relationship manager can be a stepping stone into sales. And part of their job is to persuade people to come in and see the advisor, to persuade people to tell them where all the outside assets are, to persuade them to attend an event, to bring their friends, to take phone calls. It is a persuasive position.
Yeah.
And it is a mistake of the first magnitude to require a service assistant to also act like a relationship manager and try and persuade clients to do things they don't want to persuade. Their job is service. It's a different role than relationship manager.
100%. And I'll tell you, so on our team, we had a relationship manager and a service associate. And for a time, we had our service associate attempt to do some of the work of the relationship manager, and it doesn't work. Partly because of, again, that high sense of responsibility led to, well, no, but the paperwork has to be filled out. I can't make phone calls. Or, hey, this account needed to be updated. The back office is asking for new documentation or whatever. I have to handle that. I can't call for the seminar, right? So that's the one of the keys. The other thing is that our service associate, super friendly. She was amazing. Absolutely love her, and our clients loved her. She was very friendly on the phone, but she was also very businesslike. She got done what needed to be done. Now, our relationship manager, on the other hand, she'd pick up the phone and get on the phone with a client. And, before the end of the call, that client would have spilled their guts about everything going on in their life. It's that persuasion that Bill talked about. And a lot of it was natural ability to get people to talk. And in that information was then used, going back to our data conversation, to do a better job of providing service and care to our clients. None of our clients would ever go to a AI robot for their investments, because that's not what they got from us. They got a caring and concerned office that helped them with everything in their financial lives. So that's the key difference. Hopefully that answered your question, Stephanie. And hopefully that describes a little bit about the relationship manager. Now let's talk about the difference between a relationship manager and a business development manager, and why I would choose one over the other.
All right. The business relationship manager generally is reaching out beyond the advisor's sphere of influence. And why might they do that? Well, they might want to get into another market. They may have opened an office in a different city, and they want clients in that city, and they don't have any connections or relationship. So your business development manager is, I don't know, perhaps has a bit of a thicker skin than the relationship manager. They have to deal with seminars, with cold calling, with direct mail, with sometimes even going door to door to invite people to events. And they can have no back off when it comes to communication. They have to be able to reach out in the morning, the afternoon, the evening, any time of day, be willing to attend events at night. And it really is a position before becoming an advisor.
Yeah.
And if they can reach out, and just as an aside, I see an awful lot of kids of advisors being brought in and made into what I call servicing advisors. And that is a near fatal mistake if that person is ever going to be a rainmaker. A rainmaker does not have a servicing advisor mindset. And that servicing advisor mindset can sneak in and take over that person's entire being. And within a few years, they will be at a point they wouldn't even go next door to introduce themselves to the owner of a new engineering company that just moved in.
Which is guaranteeing your business will die as soon as you hand it over.
When you, the advisor, leave and turn it over to a servicing advisor, that's the high watermark of that business.
100%. So the business development officer or manager is definitely that stepping stone. And I love the way you described that. The key difference is, as far as which you would hire first, is looking at your existing book. So if you have a book of a few hundred clients, you're pretty well connected in the community, and you have some opportunities for strategic partners, I would definitely start with the relationship manager, because your relationship marketing is going to be the foundation of your prospecting channels. and is going to bring in enough business to, warrant the salary and pay of that relationship manager, but also grow your business to that next level. Now, if you're just starting out, you've maybe 50 to 100 households, and you're trying to really ramp things up, but find you don't have time, then I would look at a business development officer as somebody to go out there and meet that ultimate goal of just bringing in new business, getting interested and qualified leads in front of you. And they decide, okay, yeah, we're going to run seminars, we're going to run digital marketing ads, we're going to, whatever it is needs to be done, they do what it takes to get those people in front of you, including, as Bill said, jump on the phone or go next door to that new engineering company and start talking to the owner. But whatever it takes, they're willing to do that. They have that fire in their eyes. And so that you brought up a good position, that it's one that honestly a lot of the advisors I'm talking to are talking about hiring, because when it comes down to it, there's only so much time in the day. And if you're spending your time as the advisor, your joy in this business comes from meeting with new prospects or existing clients that have money and are ready to go. And while you love your clients, the drudgery is going through the reviews. You're looking for somebody to help take that off your plate. So let's talk about that position of the service advisor. Why is that a good thing? And in what cases would we hire them? And what are we looking for?
Well, there are some advisors who have all the technical knowledge. They may have the personality. They're good, decent people. They're smart, but they don't have whatever that factor is that makes them a rainmaker. They can do a great job maintaining a clientele. Can they stand up in front of a group of 30 people and deliver a seminar? Maybe not. And so the servicing advisor is probably not promoted to, senior partner. They have a portion of the book. Their job is to maintain that book, to ensure that proper investments are made, that questions are answered, and all these other little things, but they don't reach out to bring in new business. And that's a personality type. There are people out there who have extraordinary alphabet soup after their names, who could make a great servicing advisor, who are some of them working out of their house, making $75,000 a year.
Definitely. So I think we've described briefly. So we barely scratched the surface of all of these topics so far, and of who we're looking for each of these positions. Now, if you're a client of ours, we have sample job descriptions. They're also in the document library. Those KPIs and job descriptions should give you a clear idea of the kind of person you're looking for each of these posts. Again, if you have questions, please drop them into the chat. But I want to talk about, let's talk about the process of hiring, because this is another area where I see some of the biggest mistakes occur. And number one, and this is something I want to talk about because it's something that I learned from the advisor I worked with, and as we've passed it around, it's worked for everybody. And that is the principle of always be hiring. Right. This is not doesn't mean I'm actually bringing them on, right, and kicking off their salary, but I'm always looking for the person that could next fill a position on my team. So if you meet a service associate at an event or whatever that seems phenomenal and great, you get on very well with them, ask to stay in touch, right? Say, hey, I'm on a growing team and I periodically look to hire great people. I'd love to stay in touch. And stay in touch, right? Same thing if you meet a great person. I went to REI once, and this was back during the pandemic, and they were only letting a few people in the store at the time, and they had this employee sitting out in front of the building to let people in. And most of the time I went to REI, the employees sitting there would be like, all right, you can go. And they would just sit there, not saying a word. And then the next person would come up, and as soon as somebody would leave the store, they'd say, okay, you can go in. And it was kind of a drudgery job, which I get. Standing in front of a store would be a drudgery job. But then I went once, and there was a guy there, and he asked me, he's like, hey, how you doing? What are you here to buy today? I said, well, I'm here to get a cooler. Oh, that's fantastic. When you go in, they're off to the left. Now, what are you going to do with a cooler? Going up camping with my son. This is for his birthday. Oh, fantastic. That's great. Are there chairs and things up there? Because actually, if you go right by the coolers, there's those chairs right there. Now, do you have any Yetis? Because those Yetis will keep everything cool too. The Yetis are right to the right of the cooler. He was selling me everything in that store, but doing it based upon what I gave him as information. And he did it in such a kind, nice way. I was like, this guy needs to not be standing in front of REI. He needs to be making calls for an advisor. So that's the kind of person that you're looking to stay in touch with.
Right.
And the brilliant thing about this is, as you stay in touch, you'll learn two things. You'll get over the first date, makeup syndrome, right? Where slap on a whole bunch of makeup and we look very different than we actually are. Because there are times that we stayed in touch with people and realized, oh, that person's a gossip and full of drama. That is not somebody I want in my office. Everything else seems nice, but no. And then other times we stayed in touch with somebody, and then when it came time to hire, we had two people that we could immediately call and say, hey, we're hiring. Will you come work with us? And that's much easier than placing an ad and going through resumes and interviews and all that. So that's number one. Number two, let's talk about the basic skills, Bill. Why do we use the basic skills tests when we're looking to hire?
A long time ago, sometime in the 90s, I realized that we were hiring, in some cases, college graduates who could not alphabetize, they could not do basic mathematics, and they were making messes. And I wrote the first draft of what we call the basic skills test. And when you look at that, you'll say, come on, give me a break. And I'm going to tell you, if you hire somebody that can't pass that test, they will not work out, period. So the basic skills checklist is a test. It takes what, an hour now to do it?
Yeah, it should be under an hour. Yeah.
And it's got basic mathematics in it. There's alphabetizing. Why is that important? Anything having to do with filing, you got to be able to alphabetize. There's a section in there where they have to proofread a document. They have to write you a business letter to prove they know the English language well enough to communicate in writing. And if they pass this test, hey, you go to the next step in the interview process. If they flunk the test, you don't even interview them. You send them home.
100%. And what I tell people before they take the test is, look, this test, if you can pass this test, you're going to do great at this job. If you don't pass, no hard feelings. It just means this job isn't for you. You wouldn't be happy because there just would be constantly struggling. And I can't believe the number of people that don't pass this. We've had people with master's degrees, Mensa Society members who couldn't do the alphabetization. And not only can they not file, but if I hand them paperwork to fill out, are they going to be detail oriented enough to catch all of those little check boxes or make sure the client initialed in every spot needing to be initialed? And that if they're going to miss it, that's not the person I want in my office. So there's a question in here, and I'm going to get to it here, Jay, in just a second in the chat, because I want to quickly go through the last little bit and then give you some things to move forward on before we end today. So the second thing that I see a problem with in hiring is people constantly hiring in an impatient manner. So in other words, they hire the best person that applied. So they may have 5 candidates that applied and they hire the best of the 5. And now some of you may ask, well, what's the problem with that? Well, the problem is I want to hire the best person for the job, not the best of the people that applied. So be patient, take your time. If the best of the people that applied isn't your ideal candidate, doesn't fit these descriptions as we've written them or described here, don't hire them. Keep looking, right? It's okay much better to keep looking for another few months than hire somebody, keep them on and drag on in pain and torture for 6 months, and then let them go and be starting over, right? I'd much rather just hold on for a few more months and find a good person. The next thing is that when we do hire them, there's certain things that must be described. And this is where we'll answer your question, Jay. And that is, number one, they have to have a clear job description. Now, we've helped you out there, but you'll need to take a look at those job descriptions and maybe make some changes. Number two, have a confidentiality agreement. I know your firm may have things that they fill out. You need a confidentiality agreement. You're handing them all of the information on your favorite families and friends of which are your clients. make sure they have something signed. Number two, what are the contingencies of the job? Vacation time, sick pay, how long do they have to work before any of that kicks in? Make sure that's clearly understood. And then finally, compensation. And I think to briefly cover compensation, given the time we have left, compensation is best when it's based upon bonus or salary, and a bonus that's based upon them getting their job done, right? Those KPIs that we talked about. Now, we describe that whole process in the white paper for our clients. If you're not a client of ours, we can definitely help you with that. Just give us a call and we can walk you through those services that we can provide to help you set that compensation up. Now, the question we have, though, this is one that I get often, is that what sort of compensation is typical for a servicing advisor? Is it a revenue split? Is it a bonus structure? What do you normally see, Bill?
I think it's generally a salary plus.
Mhm.
The person who wants to be a servicing advisor is more interested in security than risk.
Yeah, and so typically what I see is that plus. So a base salary, to your point, they want that security. They're the 9 to 5ers, right? They want that job that they can come in and just meet with people and then go home. They want the base salary, and then usually it's a small percentage, 5-10% at the upper side of the revenue gained from the portion of the book that they're servicing. So that would be a brief description of it. Obviously, we can get into more detail because it depends upon experience, the level of work that they're doing, if they're doing the planning, and if they're managing assets. There's other things that have to come into play, but that would be the base level that I would say. So that being said, I want to kind of come and close it out here, Bill, because we are running at the end. Well, first off, again, stay for just another minute and we'll give you the link for the to download that Surefire Team. Well, in fact, let me put it up now so you can get it while we're talking. So go ahead and go to this link. You'll answer a few questions and be able to download the Surefire Team Development document that Bill and I have talked about. Or if you go into the chat, there's a link there that you can just click on that'll take you right there. So either way, we'll get you there, but listen for a couple more seconds, because here's the thing: whether you're a client of ours already or somebody who's looking to get some help in hiring, there's 2 ways you can go about this. Like I said, you can either read the white paper and figure it out for yourself. We give you a lot of information there. And if you're an existing client, we have job descriptions, KPIs, everything out there that you would need on the document library. And you could pull all this together, or you can bring us in. Now we have a couple of services that we provide that would help you in both of these areas, whether you're a client or somebody that's just looking for help. Number one is we do help hire. So our head of HR runs a group that will actually go out there and help you hire. So they'll do everything from placing ads, running those basic skills tests, doing job interviews, basically look for all of the ideal skill sets and talents that we look for, and then set them in front of you. Okay, these 3 people could get the job done. You decide which you like best and you would like to work with. So that's basically what we do for you. And it's an upfront fee with a monthly ongoing if it takes us months. I will say that lately it's been going really fast. Maybe if the job market changes, it'll take longer, but it goes really fast for some. And it's been really good. We've done it for several clients. They've hired some wonderful people that they're very happy with and that are already having a tremendous impact on teams. So that is something that we can do for you. If you're interested, please let us know. The other thing is that we can come to your office. If you're unsure if it's time to hire, if you're unsure if we're running at a peak efficiency, or hey, maybe you did just hire and you need some help getting that person fully up to speed. We have a couple of consultants, including myself, that can come out to your office, help evaluate. We'll go through those 162 job descriptions, and it's a process of evaluation that we have. We'll go through that with you, help you define everything, get job descriptions that are customized to you, and then help you see, okay, when do we hire next? Or, who on the team, as Bill and I talked about earlier, maybe there's somebody there that we need to send on their way. Whatever it is, we can help take care of that with a full evaluation in your office. So if you're interested in something like that, please let us know. We'd be happy to help. Again, download this Surefire Team Development document. It is going to be tremendously helpful. And I think that's it. Bill, any final words before we close?
No, I think that's it. I think that's a good introduction.
Awesome. Yeah, very, very brief, very fast. I know there's a lot to go over with this, but hopefully it gave you a good idea. Thank you very much for attending today on this beautiful Wednesday. I hope you have a wonderful day, and I look forward to hearing from you all.